Theodore's hands trembled as he sat across from his 11-year-old son in their quiet Denver living room. "Alex, there's something I need to tell you. I'm gay," he said, and the boy's immediate reply hit him like a freight train, sending his world crashing down. Alex stared at him for a long second, his video game controller slipping from his small fingers onto the carpet. The afternoon light filtered through the half-drawn blinds, painting stripes across the boy's freckled face. "Kai told me already," Alex said, his voice small but sharp with the kind of hurt only a child could deliver so cleanly. "He said you two are together and that you've been lying to me and Mom the whole time. If you're gay, Dad, then I don't know who you are anymore. I wish you had just stayed normal." The words landed like stones in Theodore's chest. His breath caught, the room tilting around him as his knees buckled and he slid off the couch to the floor. Everything he had rehearsed for months, the careful explanations, the promises that nothing would change, evaporated in that single sentence. He pressed his palms to the cool hardwood, gasping, the weight of years of hiding suddenly too heavy to carry. Kai had told the boy, the man he loved had gone behind his back. The betrayal mixed with his son's rejection until Theodore could barely see straight. Minutes blurred. He didn't remember calling Kai, but suddenly the front door opened and there he was, Kai's light brown hair catching the same sunlight, his green eyes wide with worry. Kai dropped to his knees beside him, strong hands steadying Theodore's shoulders. "Ted, breathe. I'm here." Theodore clutched Kai's shirt like a lifeline, the fabric soft and familiar from countless stolen nights. "He knows. Alex knows everything, and he hates me for it." His voice broke on the last word. Kai pulled him into a gentle embrace right there on the living room floor, the kind of quiet hold that said more than any speech could. "We'll fix this. Together." But even as Kai spoke, Theodore felt the crack widening inside him. At 38, with a steady accounting job downtown and a modest house in the suburbs he had fought to keep after the divorce, he had finally chosen truth. Now truth had chosen to break him. That night, after Alex had locked himself in his room and refused dinner, Theodore and Kai sat on the back porch under the Colorado stars. The air smelled of pine and distant rain. Kai poured 2 glasses of iced tea, his movements calm, deliberate. "I didn't mean to tell him," Kai said softly. "He saw us at the park last week. Asked questions. I thought honesty would help him understand." Theodore stared at the dark yard, the swing set he had built for Alex now empty and still. "Honesty. That's what I wanted too. But he's 11, Kai. He doesn't see love. He sees lies. And maybe he's right." The internal storm raged on. For years Theodore had buried who he was, marrying Sarah because it was what everyone expected, having Alex because fatherhood felt like the right script. When the marriage ended 3 years ago, he told himself it was mutual. The truth was different. Meeting Kai at a community fundraiser had cracked the shell open. One coffee turned into late talks, then quiet weekends when Alex was with his mother. Kai made him feel seen, not just tolerated. But now that light felt dangerous. Kai reached over, lacing their fingers together. "You're not broken, Ted. You're finally whole." Alex is scared. Kids get scared when the world shifts. Theodore wanted to believe it. But as the hours ticked past midnight, the collapse settled deeper into his bones. He had risked everything for this moment of authenticity, and the price was the look in his son's eyes. By morning, the house felt colder. Alex wouldn't meet his gaze at breakfast, grabbing his backpack and heading to the bus stop without a word. Theodore stood at the window watching the small figure disappear down the street, wondering if fatherhood and love could ever fit in the same heart without tearing it apart. Kai stayed through the weekend, canceling his shifts at the graphic design studio. They cooked simple meals, talked in low voices, and waited for Alex to thaw. But each silence from the boy carved another notch in Theodore's resolve. On Sunday evening, when Alex finally spoke from the doorway of his room, it was only to ask, "Are you moving out like Mom did?" The question lodged in Theodore's throat like glass. He shook his head, but the damage was already spreading. By Monday, Theodore dragged himself to the office, the Denver skyline sharp against a blue sky that felt mocking. His coworker Mark clapped him on the back a little too hard. "Heard you had a rough weekend, man. Everything okay at home?" The casual tone carried an edge Theodore couldn't quite name yet. He forced a smile and buried himself in spreadsheets, but the numbers blurred. That night Kai cooked stir-fry and listened while Theodore poured out the fear that he had ruined his son forever. "I keep thinking maybe I should have waited," he admitted. "Maybe forever." Kai set the plates down and cupped Theodore's face with both hands. "Waiting almost killed you once. Remember how you looked the day we met? Like you were drowning on dry land." The memory surfaced unbidden. The fundraiser, Kai's easy laugh, the way his presence had made the air feel breathable again. Theodore leaned into the touch, drawing strength from the warmth. Yet underneath, the internal conflict churned. Love for Kai felt right. Love for Alex demanded protection. How did a man choose without losing pieces of himself? The week stretched on in small battles. Alex ate dinner in silence. Theodore left notes in his lunchbox that went unread. Kai suggested family therapy, but the idea of explaining their relationship to a stranger made Theodore's stomach twist. By Friday, the exhaustion had settled into his shoulders like wet cement. He stood at the kitchen sink washing dishes alone after Kai had gone home, staring at his reflection in the dark window. The man looking back seemed both freer and more fragile than ever. The collapse wasn't over. It had only just begun. The call from Sarah came at 7:30 the next morning, her voice tight with the anger Theodore had dreaded. "What the hell did you do, Ted? Alex called me crying last night saying you're gay, and that some guy named Kai is living in my old house." She didn't wait for an answer. "You swore when we divorced that Alex would never have to deal with this kind of confusion. Now he's asking if he has to choose between us." Theodore gripped the phone until his knuckles whitened, standing in the middle of the kitchen, still wearing yesterday's shirt. "I didn't plan it this way. I wanted to tell him myself." "You told him after your boyfriend already did," Sarah shot back. "He's 11, Theodore. He doesn't need your midlife crisis dumped on him." The line went dead before he could explain that Kai wasn't a crisis. He was the first real thing in years. Alex refused to speak to him again that morning, slamming the door on his way to school. Theodore drove to work in a fog, the Rocky Mountains hazy in the distance. At the accounting firm downtown, the whispers had started. Mark lingered by the coffee machine. "So, big news. Huh? You and that artist guy?" The question was casual, but the side-eye wasn't. Theodore muttered something about personal matters and retreated to his cubicle. By lunch, the tension had coiled tighter. His boss, Mr. Reynolds, called him in for a quick chat about quarterly reports, but the real message hung unspoken. Keep it quiet. That afternoon Kai met him at a small park near the office, the same one where Alex had once learned to ride a bike. They sat on a bench under cottonwood trees, sunlight dappling their shoulders. Kai looked tired but steady, his light hair ruffled by the breeze. "Sarah called me too," he admitted. "She wants me to stay away." Theodore's stomach dropped. "She can't do that. She can try. But I'm not going anywhere unless you ask me to." Kai's voice was soft, yet the offer carried weight. In that moment Theodore saw the sacrifice Kai was willing to make, and it terrified him. Their relationship had grown in stolen hours. Late-night drives along Colfax, weekends hiking in the foothills, quiet mornings where Kai sketched while Theodore read the news. Kai had taught him it was okay to want more than survival. Now that lesson felt like a luxury he might have to return. Misunderstanding bloomed between them that evening. When Theodore suggested they keep things low-key for a while, Kai pulled back. "Low-key? Like before? I thought we were past hiding." His eyes searched Theodore's face. "Or am I just the secret again?" "No," Theodore said quickly, reaching for Kai's hand across the restaurant table. "You're everything. But Alex, he's pulling away. If I push too hard, I might lose him." Kai nodded, but the hurt lingered in the set of his mouth. They drove home in silence, the city lights blurring past. Inside the house Alex was already in bed, door closed. Theodore stood in the hallway listening to the quiet, feeling the pull in two directions. Later, alone in the guest room because the master felt too big, he replayed every choice. The divorce papers. The first date with Kai. The moment he had decided truth mattered more than comfort. Each decision had seemed right then. Now they felt like dominoes toppling toward an unknown end. Saturday brought a small breakthrough and a larger crack. Alex agreed to a walk around the block if Kai stayed home. They strolled past neighbors mowing lawns, the boy kicking stones ahead. "Do you still love Mom?" Alex asked suddenly. "Parts of her, yeah. But loving Kai doesn't cancel that." Alex stopped, scuffing his sneakers. "Kids at school say it's weird. That maybe you don't want me anymore." The words landed heavy. Theodore knelt on the sidewalk, eye level with his son, heart cracking open again. "I want you more than anything. Always." For a moment Alex's eyes softened. Then he shrugged and kept walking. That tiny thaw gave Theodore hope. But the school rumors Sarah mentioned later that night reignited the fear. Monday brought another call from the principal. Alex had gotten into a shoving match after someone called his dad names. Theodore picked him up early. The boy's bruised knuckles a mirror of his own invisible wounds. Kai waited at home with pizza and a quiet presence. Over slices, Alex asked, "Is Kai my stepdad now?" The question hung between them like smoke. Theodore looked at Kai across the table, seeing the same hope and uncertainty reflected back. "He's part of our family if you'll let him be." Alex didn't answer, but he didn't storm off either. Small mercies. As the weeks passed, Theodore felt himself stretching thin. Work pressure mounted with a big audit looming. Sarah filed paperwork questioning custody arrangements. Kai's own family in California called, urging him to come home for a visit and think things over. The misunderstandings multiplied. Kai thought Theodore was pulling away emotionally. Theodore feared Kai would leave if the pressure grew too great. One night after Alex had gone to bed, they stood on the porch arguing in whispers. "You keep choosing him over us," Kai said, voice cracking for the first time. "I'm not choosing. I'm trying to hold everything together." The argument ended with Kai driving away into the night, leaving Theodore alone with the echo of his own fears. The collapse had evolved into something sharper. The daily grind of choosing, again and again, between pieces of his heart. Spring arrived early in Denver, melting the last snow and turning the foothills green. Theodore marked the change by the way Alex started leaving his bedroom door open a crack. Small things. A shared joke at breakfast. A question about Kai's latest drawing. Yet the undercurrent of tension never fully disappeared. Kai had returned after 3 days away, eyes softer, apology in every gesture. They rebuilt quietly. Weekend hikes where Alex sometimes tagged along, movie nights with popcorn fights. But society pressed in. At the firm, Mr. Reynolds suggested Theodore tone down the personal stuff, after a client raised an eyebrow. Theodore smiled through gritted teeth and worked longer hours to prove his value. One Saturday Kai suggested a drive to Boulder. The three of them piled into Theodore's SUV, windows down, radio playing old rock songs. Alex sat in back, feet tapping. For a few hours the world felt normal. They walked Pearl Street, ate ice cream, watched street performers. Kai bought Alex a sketchbook, and the boy actually thanked him. Hope flickered brighter. Then came the phone call that changed everything. Sarah's lawyer wanted a meeting. "She's concerned about the environment," the message said. Theodore felt the old panic rise. That night he and Kai sat on the couch after Alex was asleep, talking in low voices. "What if I lose him?" Theodore whispered. Kai pulled him close, the embrace warm and steady. "You won't. We'll fight. Together." The word together carried new weight. In the following days they met with a family counselor recommended by a colleague. The sessions were raw. Alex spoke haltingly about feeling confused and left out. Theodore listened, really listened, to the boy's fear that his dad had been replaced. Kai shared his own story of coming out to conservative parents years earlier, the rejection that still stung. The misunderstanding that nearly broke them arrived mid-May. A mutual friend posted a photo from an old Pride event showing Kai and Theodore laughing together. Sarah saw it and exploded, accusing Theodore of parading his lifestyle. Alex overheard the argument on speakerphone and shut down again. For 2 weeks the house went quiet. Kai slept on the couch some nights, unsure where he stood. Theodore lay awake replaying every choice, the internal crisis deepening. Was love selfish if it cost his son peace? Yet growth happened in unexpected places. One evening Alex brought home a school project, a family tree. He had drawn 3 branches. Mom, Dad, Kai. The simple inclusion cracked something open in Theodore. He hugged his son tight, tears threatening. Thank you. Kai saw the drawing later and smiled the soft smile that had first won Theodore over. He's trying. Work tension peaked when a promotion came up. Theodore was passed over, the reason unspoken but clear. He came home angry and exhausted. Kai listened, then suggested something radical. Maybe it's time we move. Smaller town, fresh start. The idea terrified and excited Theodore in equal measure. That night they stayed up late talking about possibilities, the conversation flowing into dreams of a life where they didn't have to hide. Alex's 11th birthday arrived in early June. They threw a small party in the backyard. Cake, balloons, a few neighborhood kids who didn't seem to care about the rumors. When Kai presented a custom skateboard he had painted himself, Alex's grin lit the whole yard. For the first time in months Theodore felt the pieces aligning. Not perfect, not easy, but possible. Still, the societal pressure simmered. A neighbor stopped by one evening with a polite but pointed question about the living situation. Theodore answered honestly and watched the man's smile falter. Later Kai found him on the porch staring at the stars. Does it ever get easier? Theodore asked. Kai sat beside him. Easier? No. Worth it? Every single day. The conversation stretched into the night, memories flowing. The first time Kai cooked for Alex, the night Theodore had finally said, I love you, under a harvest moon. Each story reinforced the truth they were building. By the time they went inside, the internal storm had quieted to a manageable wind. Growth wasn't loud. It was these small, stubborn choices to stay. Summer heat settled over Denver like a blanket. Theodore's days filled with audits and evenings with cautious family dinners. Alex had started Little League, and both men attended every game, cheering from the bleachers. The other parents were polite, but Theodore felt the distance. One coach even suggested family dynamics might affect team chemistry. The comment stung, yet Theodore refused to pull Alex out. Instead, he volunteered to keep score, proving presence mattered more than perception. Kai's studio work picked up. A local gallery wanted his series on modern love, and the deadline meant late nights. Theodore brought him coffee at 2 in the morning, sitting quietly while Kai sketched. Their relationship deepened in those quiet hours. No grand declarations, just steady support. One night Kai looked up from his tablet. You know, I never thought I'd get to build something real like this. The vulnerability in his voice reminded Theodore why he had risked everything. Misunderstanding flared again when Sarah arrived unannounced for a custody discussion. She saw Kai making pancakes and the tension escalated. This isn't the example I want for my son, she said in the driveway afterward. Theodore stood his ground. He's our son, and Kai is part of his life now. The argument left him drained, but Alex, listening from the window, later asked, Are you and Kai gonna get married someday? The innocent question floored him. That weekend they drove to Rocky Mountain National Park. Hiking trails and fresh air worked magic. Alex ran ahead, collecting pine cones. At a scenic overlook Theodore and Kai stood side by side, shoulders touching. Whatever happens with Sarah, I'm not walking away, Theodore said. Kai squeezed his hand. The promise settled something deep inside. Back home, the workplace storm broke. Mr. Reynolds called Theodore into the office and suggested early retirement options. The clients are traditional, he said. We need to consider optics. Theodore left the meeting numb. That night he told Kai and Alex over spaghetti. Alex pushed his plate away. They can't do that. You're the best. The boys' defense warmed Theodore more than any promotion could. Kai proposed a counterplan. Start your own firm. I've got savings. We can make it work. The offer was generous, born of love and belief. Theodore spent the next week researching licenses and dreaming aloud with Kai after Alex went to bed. The shared vision felt like oxygen. Yet prejudice found new ways. At Alex's baseball game, a parent made a crude remark loud enough for the boy to hear. Alex came home quiet and asked, "Why do people hate us?" Theodore sat on the edge of his bed, choosing words carefully. "They fear what they don't understand. But we know who we are." The conversation lasted until midnight, father and son talking about courage and kindness. When Alex finally slept, Theodore stood in the doorway feeling the shift. His son was learning resilience alongside him. Kai celebrated the small victory by framing Alex's family tree drawing. They hung it in the hallway where everyone could see. The simple act spoke louder than arguments. As July stretched on, Theodore felt the internal crisis easing into purpose. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was building. August brought the custody hearing. The courtroom in downtown Denver felt too bright, too formal. Sarah's lawyer painted Theodore as unstable, Kai as a disruption. Their own attorney countered with character witnesses and therapy notes. Alex sat outside with a social worker, too young to testify but old enough to feel the weight. Theodore held Kai's hand under the table through hours of testimony. When the judge asked about their living arrangement, Theodore spoke from the heart. Kai isn't a phase. He's family. Alex deserves to see what real love looks like. The words hung in the air. The judge reserved decision for 30 days. The wait was torture. Theodore threw himself into launching his freelance accounting business from the spare room. Kai designed the logo. Alex helped stuff envelopes. The teamwork knit them tighter. One evening after a long day, Alex looked up from homework. "Dad, I'm sorry I said those things before. I was scared." The apology cracked open the last wall. Theodore pulled his son into a hug that lasted minutes. Kai watched from the doorway, eyes shining. Later that night, the two men sat on the porch again. "He's coming around," Kai said. "Because of you," Theodore answered. "You stayed when it would have been easier to leave." A new misunderstanding tested them when Kai received a job offer in California. "It's a huge opportunity," he explained over breakfast. "But I won't take it without you both." The conversation stretched into the afternoon. Theodore weighed the fresh start against roots in Denver. Alex weighed in unexpectedly. "I like it here, but I like Kai more." The honesty decided them. They would visit California first, test the waters. The climax arrived unexpectedly at a neighborhood block party. Someone had too much to drink and made loud comments about "that gay dad." Before Theodore could respond, Alex stepped forward. "My dad is brave, and Kai makes us happy. You don't get to talk about them like that." The crowd quieted. The boy had defended them without being asked. Theodore felt tears prick his eyes. In that moment, every struggle, every tear, every late-night doubt crystallized into pride. That night, the three of them celebrated with ice cream on the porch. Kai raised his bowl. "To family, whatever shape it takes." Alex clinked his spoon. Theodore looked at the two people who had walked through fire with him and knew the journey had been worth every scar. September brought cooler nights and the judge's decision. Joint custody remained, with expanded visitation for Sarah, but no restrictions on Kai's presence. The ruling felt like a deep breath after months underwater. Theodore closed his new business's first official month with modest profit. Kai's gallery show opened to positive reviews. Alex started 6th grade carrying the family tree drawing in his backpack for show and tell. Life settled into a rhythm that felt earned. Mornings meant breakfast together. Weekends meant hikes or museum trips. The misunderstandings that once threatened to tear them apart now became stories they laughed about. One evening, Alex asked Kai to teach him to draw. Watching them at the kitchen table, heads bent over paper, Theodore felt the last piece click into place. He had not lost his son. He had gained a fuller family. Yet growth demanded reflection. Theodore stood at the window one crisp October night, watching leaves swirl in the yard. Kai joined him, arms sliding around his waist. "Penny for your thoughts? I almost gave up," Theodore admitted. "That first day when Alex said those words, I thought I'd broken everything beyond repair." Kai rested his chin on Theodore's shoulder. "But you didn't. You chose truth, and truth chose us back." The words resonated. The journey had taken them through betrayal, prejudice, sacrifice, and awakening. Theodore had learned that love wasn't a choice between people but a brave expansion to include them all. Kai had discovered his own strength in staying. Alex had begun understanding that families came in many honest shapes. As winter approached, they planned a trip to California to explore options without pressure. The future stretched open, bright with possibility. Theodore no longer feared the collapse. He had learned to rebuild stronger. So, true or false? A father's truth should always come before protecting his child's innocence, no matter the age?